Yeah, we are live. Welcome. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of ACFI Delhi Chapter, my team and I welcome you all and thank you for sparing your valuable time to be with us today. I also welcome the distinguished panelists and moderator. Good to have you with us, all of you. We are looking forward to a very engaging session today. I also welcome the ACFI President, Mr. Cyrus Katgara, and all the members of our board, and thank them for the support that they give to us each time. Thank you, Cyrus Ji, for that. Now, the question that comes is, why did we choose the theme on cargo village this time? Developing an ideal Indian cargo village. Air Cargo India is targeted to reach 10 million metric tons by 2030. To achieve this, we need to establish a smooth, safe, and fast movement of cargo and ensure timely delivery of our international trade and commerce. The targeted growth in the air freight traffic has brought before the necessity of developing air cargo villages at the gateway airports in the country. And this will not just pave the ways for the development of international cargo hubs at the airports, but also boost our trade and economy and generate employment opportunities. In line with the global hubs, there is a need that India too examines its needs to adopt the concept of the best practices, rather the global best practices, such as the cargo villages, FTZs, to meet India's targeted air cargo growth. And hence, we thought it is time to choose this. At the moment, we have only one in Bangalore, in Hyderabad. Delhi is developing. So we thought, let's bring up this topic. I also have the pleasure to welcome our chief guest, Mr. Piyush Srivastava, Senior Economic Advisor, Ministry of Civil Aviation. There he is, yes, sir. I'll just say a few words about him. Mr. Piyush Srivastava has been appointed as the new Senior Economic Advisor for the Ministry of Civil Aviation, Government of India. He is an IAS officer of the 1993 batch, an All India topper of IAS exam. He brings with him over 28 years of experience in general management, policy formulation, scheme formulation and implementation strategy, evaluation, economic analysis, monitoring, training. He is a science graduate with a postgraduate degree in economics. I also gather he's done his MPhil in economics from JNU with a dissertation on industrial productivity. Shri Srivastava has served with distinction in various ministries in responsible positions in different department division handling sensitive charges. He has had the unique experience of working in all three major departments of Ministry of Finance, Department of Economic Affairs, Department of Revenue, and Department of Expenditure. So all three are there. During the course of service, he has had exposure of working with multilateral aid agencies like World Bank, Asian Development Bank, regarding infrastructure project management, as well as grassroots implementation of the command area scheme and on the field in DC MSME. In the past, he has served on boards of projects and Development India Private Limited, National Fertilizers Corporation, GITA Global Innovation and Technology Alliance, and National Institute of Designs. Besides this, he has been vice chairman on the governing council of 22 MSME technology centers. And by the way, he loves playing badminton and reading a lot. The civil aviation industry has emerged as one of the fastest growing industries in India in recent times. Thus, Mr. Srivastava's role will be instrumental in paving the way forward for the industry under the leadership of Shri Jyotiraditya Scindia, our Civil Aviation Minister. Welcome, Piyush ji. And may I request you to say a few words to us, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aggarwal, for that very kind introduction. President ACFI, Mr. Cyrus Kadgara, other office bearers of ACFI, delegates and friends. Let me begin by wishing you all a very happy Navratri and extend a warm welcome to this virtual seminar of developing of an ideal Indian cargo village, which also happens to be my first webinar in this ministry. So it's an auspicious beginning at the time of Navratri. I look forward to more engagements with you all. Friends, as you all know, before the COVID struck us in 2018-19, that is the period before the COVID, the aviation sector was cruising very comfortably at a comfortable cruise speed, helped by the tailwind of a buoyant economy. And this lasted till COVID got us down. But in the pre-COVID period, the passenger traffic was growing at a pace which actually surprised the aviation experts. And it was felt that the cargo sector was somehow lagging behind and it needed to do a lot more. This was juxtaposed by the fact that 35% of exim trade in value terms was carried by the aviation sector, whereas in terms of value terms, it was 35%, but volume terms, it was just 2%. So there was this feeling that this needs to be ramped up. But of course, it stands to reason that this is the way it is designed. Any cargo which is of low volume but high value and is time sensitive, only that would preferably be carried by airways. So that is the way it was designed and that is the way it delivered. But the cargo story that I have learned in the last 3 months has been a mixed bag. If you look, I mean, I'll take you back sometime in 2010-11. The figures that I have, that at that time we were only doing domestic air cargo to the volume of 8.86 lakh metric tons. This rose to 2018-19 in 2018-19 to 36.13 lakh metric tons. Now, this is phenomenal growth by any standards. It dipped somewhat in 2019-20 to 33.64 lakh tons, but that is quite explainable because of the grounding of jet airways and the impact of lockdown towards the end of 2019-20. So it came down a bit. And in 2020-21, when the country faced the brunt of the COVID attack, the cargo sector still could hit a 25.03 lakh metric ton, which is commendable. The statistics probably do not do justice to what was achieved, because during this time, what the cargo sector did was to carry essential drugs, vaccines, PPE kits, oxygen concentrators, oxygen cylinders, and what have you. Basically, the point that I'm trying to make is that even if the cargo sector was not hitting to its full potential, it was the cargo sector which actually kept the airlines flying during this critical time. And it is not surprising that between the period of 2018 to 2021, the Indian freighters numbers grew from 7 to 28. And during the same period, the share of Indian carriers in international freighter movements went up from 2% to 19%. Now, let us look at the other side of the mixed bag. All this looks good and cheerful, but when we look at the other side, when we compare our domestic airports with the world's top 10 airport, the figures that I have in front of me, they reveal that all the top 10 international airports could use their facilities for dealing with 2 million tons a year. Whereas, and in fact, the top two, that is Hong Kong and Memphis, clocked upwards of 4 million tons. Whereas the top Indian airports, you look at Delhi and Mumbai, handled less than 1 million ton. Then Bangalore and Chennai handled less than 0.4 million ton. And the next three, Kolkata, Hyderabad, and Ahmedabad, handled less than 0.2 million ton. So obviously there is a lot of ground that needs to be covered, given that we are a dynamic economy, a vibrant economy with an aspirational middle class, and increasing middle class, and we are keen to buy goods and travel. So obviously all these put together should add up to a more capacity in the cargo sector. Now, what is the requirement of the cargo sector? Obviously, we need to put in money for creation of infrastructure, as Mr. Aggarwal was mentioning, for smooth and faster movement of cargo. The emphasis should be on timely and prompt delivery. And it is in this context that the idea of air cargo villages has come of age. I completely agree with what Mr. Aggarwal said, that air cargo villages need to be set up in a large number, at least at the gateway airports of the country. This will help in the development of international air cargo hubs at international airports, and in turn boost our economy and generate employment, which is probably the need of the hour. Now, there are various successful examples that have been noted. Hong Kong, Dubai, Frankfurt, Singapore, all of them have a mix of passenger and cargo and have adopted the cargo village and the FTZ concept. The infrastructure that they have created is basically at 3 tiers. As I learned from my friends here, I mean, most of them, Mr. Kadgara and others, have been educating me desperately in the last 2.5 months. So I suppose something has rubbed off on me now. So the tier 1 is basically air cargo terminals with airside aircraft parking facility. At tier 2, freight forwarders warehouses are being envisaged. And at tier 3, air cargo logistic parks with bonded warehouse capacities for third-party logistics. Now, all this would create the basic infrastructure, but has to be supported with other structures, which would come in the form of strong airline network, multimodal connectivity, seamless cargo information flow, and operational efficiencies at all levels, whether it's at the terminal operator level, whether it is the freight forwarders level, whether it is at the agents level, whether it is the customs level, or other government agencies. Now, I cannot overemphasize the fact that the cargo village would play a vital role in providing value-added services. For import, it will help the freight forwarders to take cargo directly into their bonded warehouses. And for exporters, the exporter can bring it to their warehouse in the cargo village and directly export it. And these operations would only entail a single interface with the customs. So obviously there is an increase in efficiency and time, and it helps everybody. I mean, in a nutshell, what is being said is that the cargo village enables entire cargo related activities consolidated at single location and facilitates activities like customs, carriers, and custodians under a single roof, jointly meeting all legal requirements, making cargo ready for carriage. Now, this is basically what we are looking for, ease of doing business. So I am sure that the cargo village concept, if it is really taken up in the country, it is going to be a great boon, not just to the cargo sector and the aviation sector, but also to the country at large. I think before I stop, I must tell you this. The other day I was speaking to my friends in the cargo sector, in one of the cargo terminals that I happened to visit. And I realized how aspirational this sector is. You know, while we are still talking about the cargo village and debating on that, I found that people are also talking of a cargo city and a cargo police. And I don't know what have you, maybe we'll have the next concept before the end of this webinar itself. But I suppose that is the way it should be if the sector can truly reach out to its full potential and serve our great country. I wish you all the very best. Thank you so much, and Jai Hind.
Thank you.
Thank you, Piyush ji, for your words. Very interesting. You mentioned exactly what Cyrus also tells us. So yes, thank you very much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for me to introduce our moderator so that we could move on to our show. May I request Brajesh? Yeah, Brajesh, thanks. I'd like to introduce Vipul Bhalla, who will be the moderator for us today. He's the chairman, Bar India Northern Region and senior regional manager, Cargo, Oman Air. He's responsible for the Indian subcontinent, covering India, Bangladesh, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. Previously, Mr. Bhalla has worked with British Airways and Etihad Airways, apart from a short entrepreneurial stint. He has worked at Delhi, Chennai, and Dubai in management roles, covering field sales, customer service, revenue, and commercial optimization, followed by senior management position at Abu Dhabi, with worldwide sales responsibility covering 71 markets. He has managed teams generating more than 1 billion in freight revenues during his airline career over the last 30 years. He is an MBA and a science graduate from Delhi University. And I think I'll hand it over to him. He has a lot of job to do today. Vipul, over to you.
Thank you, Arvind. Appreciate the kind introduction that you've given. Piyush ji very nicely gave us a very clear path that one needs to take when you're looking at the cargo village concept. And Piyush ji, unbeknown to you, but definitely to us, and I can see Ram smiling, what you ended up with, the aspirational aspect of it, and I think we'll let, when we get to the speakers, I think our first speaker is going to be talking a fair amount about that. So let me introduce our very, very illustrious and very eminent panel of speakers. I'll begin with Ram Menen. Ram has been in our trade for over 45 years. He's starting with Kuwait Airways, British Airways, the Kuwait Aviation Group. Ram was one of the founding members of the Emirates airline, leading its cargo division since its inception in October 1985 to become the largest cargo airline in the world in 2012. He retired in June 2013 as the Divisional Senior Vice President Cargo. He is a chartered fellow of the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transportation, as well as a fellow of the Royal Aeronautical Society, and holds an engineering degree. A number of people may not actually be aware that he spearheaded the conceptualization and development of the LD-36, the EMF that a number of the carriers use today, to increase the usable space by 33%. Ram is a founding member of TIACA. He served as the Vice President, President, and CEO, as well as Chairman of the board, and is currently a member of its Chairman's Council. He has headed the IATA Cargo Committee. He was actively involved in the development of various IT initiatives to address the needs of the industry. He is the recipient of many, many awards and international recognitions, the Lifetime Achievement Award, the Hall of Fame, the Innovator of the Year, etc., etc. I have personally known Ram for over 2 decades as a soft-spoken, thorough gentleman, an absolute champion of the air logistics industry. Welcome, Ram, and thank you for being with us today. Our next panelist is Mr. Keshav Tanna. Mr. Keshav Tanna is a professionally qualified and logistics industry veteran with over 3 decades of expertise in the air freight forwarding industry. He's the founder director of his logistics company, Links International, which was established in 1984. Mr. Tanna has been the past president of ACFI, which is the Air Cargo Agents Association of India, and is currently on its advisory board. He represents ACFI as an authorized member on FIATA and has been the FIATA's vice president for 4 years. He's currently the chairman of the Air Freight Institute of FIATA, where he's actively involved with global freight matters. Mr. Tanna is also a member of the extended board of FIATA. He has represented ACFI as a member on the FAPAA, which is the Federation of Asia Pacific Air Cargo Association, and is involved in air cargo industry matters concerning the Asia Pacific region. He is a member of the Shipping and Logistics Committee of the IMC, which is the Indian Merchant Chambers. Welcome, Keshav, and thank you so much for being with us today. We then move on to Sanjiv. A number of us in the Indian environment know Sanjiv as the Chief Commercial Officer, Aero of Delhi International Airport. Since January 2018, he is leading the aeronautical and aero-related verticals at IGI Airport. In his new role, he's responsible for developing and driving the strategy of these verticals by achieving sustained growth of aeronautical revenues through various streams. Earlier to this role, Sanjiv was heading the cargo business of DIAL, where he was responsible for driving the cargo strategy and development of the master plan, making IGIA as the #1 cargo airport in the country. He actively engages with government regulators, industry for policy formation at various levels. Sanjiv was also the chairman of TIACA from 2015 to 2017 and has worked closely with all the bodies like the WCO, the ICAO, the WTO, the UNCTAD, and he currently also serves on the board of TIACA and leads the quality initiation of the cargo service quality. Prior to joining DIAL, Sanjiv has worked with British Airways World Cargo for over a decade and has rich aviation experience and an in-depth understanding of the cross-cultural working and aviation-related requirements of the different segments of the industry. Sanjiv is an alumnus of Oxford Brookes University, UK, and an accomplished individual with domestic and international experience for over 20 years. Sanjiv continues to promote the global competitiveness of the Indian logistics industry through his various international involvements. Again, thank you so much, Sanjiv, for being with us and joining this discussion. Last but not the least, Yashpal Sharma is the managing director of the Skyways group of companies, which cover air, sea, e-commerce, logistics, Gurukul, tech solutions, with the companies having offices both in India and overseas. Under his leadership and guidance, the Skyways group has expanded to 27 cities across India and international offices in Germany, Vietnam, as well as Bangladesh. The group's premier brand, Skyways Air Services, is proudly the #1 air freight forwarder of India as per World ACD for the years 2017 and 18. Yash, as the world calls him, has been in the cargo industry for over 24 years, where his innovative ideas and comprehensive experience has led his group to achieve a number of remarkable goals in the field of logistics. He's an active member of trade associations and the vice president of the Air Cargo Forum of India. He launched Cargo Flash, which was one of the first platforms on the e-business on the cargo side. And he has been awarded a couple of awards like the Face of the Future, Exemplary Leadership, Entrepreneur of the Year, etc. Yash is a donor to several charities and additionally supports social organizations like the Saviors Foundation and the Chintan Environment Group. He's a Delhi University graduate, avid sports person, music lover, and a great dancer. At events, usually he is found on the stage in some form or the other in business or even if it's a social activity. Yash works hard, parties harder, all in the right spirit and sense. Thank you so much, Yash, for being with us. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I move straight on to our illustrious panel and open the floor up to for Ram Menen to give us his views on the Indian air cargo village, as well as giving us an international view of some of the other developments. Thank you so much, Ram. Over to you.
Ram, you're mute. Ram, you're mute.
Ram, you're muted. Apologies.
Okay, no problems. I realized that I was talking to myself. Now, Vipul, thank you very much for that introduction. Cyrus, Arvind, thank you very much for inviting me. It's much appreciated. Having been retired, I mean, I get to sit in a gallery seat and see the bigger picture. It's great to be out in the gallery seat with a popcorn and my beverages, because I can now see the entire picture without actually having the stresses of the players. So it's great. Ideal cargo village. Where do I start? You know, I had this problem. I got 5 to 8 minutes to speak, and I said, how am I going to talk about all these things in 5 to 8 minutes? So my wife said to me, you know, just imagine you're talking to me. You will be a man of few words. So here I am. We're going to talk about it. Ideal cargo village is a cargo village where, well, Mr. Piyush alluded to Cargo City and Cargo Polis. I mean, we have actually graduated from cargo village to a cargo city now. I hope so. In the last 8 years since I left. But the fact is, cargo is the wheels of commerce. Guys, an ideal cargo village can only be an ideal if it's a part of the larger trade economy. So today's concept is Aerotropolis. Aerotropolis is nothing but an airport city where all the economic activities are layered all around it. And cargo and logistics are a very important part of it. Cargo is basically, logistics is basically the wheels which makes the commerce run. So ideally, a cargo village at an airport has got to have all the ingredients, all the components that goes to service trade. But that is not always the scenario. I mean, there are aerotropolises, successful aerotropolises that we have seen. Zhengzhou is an ideal, the first Chinese one. Dubai is still building that. In Utapao in Thailand is another one that's come up. But these are ideal. But in a situation like this, the reality is that you don't get ideal situations everywhere. I mean, we had in Dubai both scenarios where we had to make do with a small afterthought and the real development in DWC. In an afterthought, you went up as a cargo terminal. But what needs to happen in an afterthought, when you're trying to make an ideal scenario, the first thing that you need to do is work with your town planners, and you need to have an ideal infrastructure, road infrastructure, because your area that you have is very limited. So you probably have to move your activities somewhere outside. So what you do is, I mean, you need to just feed into this cargo terminal on a regular basis. For that, you need a very, very strong road infrastructure. And ideally, even for the freight forwarders, you don't think about what it was about 8, 9, 10 years back. Today's requirements are different. Today, freight forwarders or e-commerce have to take a leaf out of the e-commerce book, and you need to start creating facilitation centers. So you're now going to try and connect the facilitation centers into the airport. And for that, you need to have a very good road infrastructure and very good transportation infrastructure. So these are two key things that you need to look at. I'm going to just make statements at this stage, and if you want to just go into it, we can talk about that during the course of the next 2 hours. So to build a facilitation center, you need to also, the handling agents have to evolve. They have to start now looking at speeding up the delivery. In fact, what they should be doing is they should be actually picking up the freight and delivering it to the facilitation centers, so that you're trying to avoid any congestions in that ideal cargo village area or cargo city area. Or cargo polis, I mean, that was a new word that that came up today. So that's a good one. So, and key to this all, to make it happen, is digitization. How digitized are you? The more the paperwork, the paper-based economy that you create, the worse it gets in times and delays and congestion. So you're trying to take the bottlenecks away. The only way that you can take the bottleneck away is digitization. That's key to today's world. Forget about tomorrow, today's world. Make use of the artificial intelligence and everything. Treat the entire process exactly like what you do in your company administrative environment as workflow process. And that is very, very key to creating that smooth processes in a very congested area, because India suffers. 90 to 95% of your cargo villages are afterthoughts and in very congested areas. So you have a lot to do. You need to start working with the town planners. So the airport authority in itself is not going to help. It has got to be the town planning because they have to get involved in the whole process. Now, in a place like Navi Mumbai, you have a chance to create an aerotropolis. Ideal situation. But there are places like Hyderabad, Nagpur, the old Mehan project in Bangalore, you have the small industrial parks. So what you're looking at is now in a place which is congested, creating industrial parks. Now, industrial parks can be a mix of light manufacturing, as well as your logistics and facilitation centers. Now, you then connect these facilitation centers directly into the congested area. So in short, what you're looking at, I mean, my time is almost up. What you're looking at is the infrastructure to start thinking about the infrastructure before you even start thinking about an ideal cargo village. Thank you. Vipul?
Yeah, thanks, Ram. It was nice to hear from you in very, very short and very precise words as to what we need to be thinking about for our cargo villages. And the one thing I picked up straight away was the cargo villages in India seem to be an afterthought. And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more. Let me move on to Keshav. Keshav, the floor is yours to talk a bit more about the domestic sense.
Thank you, Vipulji. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for having me on this webinar, and I hope they are able to accomplish their goal going ahead as regards the cargo village or cargo city or whatever we may choose to call it in days to come. It's always been a challenge to speak after Ram, and I've known him since his Emirates days, and as he puts you in such a dizzy that you're in some sort of a fairy tale fantasy land where everyone is feeling happy and smacked, perhaps thinking, "Abhi India mein aerotropolis aa jayega. I'll have my office there and everything will be hunky dory." And then I start speaking next, and they realize that hamare paas, all we have is a rather complex air cargo complex. So that's where we are, unfortunately. But I guess things will soon change now that the ministry is taking this ahead and taking the first steps in this direction. So anyway, coming to the point of an ideal Indian air cargo village, I wish to inform our colleagues that this is a successful model which has helped logistics thrive in many a country, be it Dubai, Singapore, or any other. The concept of forming a cargo village had been explored earlier over nearly past 2 decades or more. And I think it was during the time when airports were not privatized and were run under the auspices of the Airports Authority of India. At least I know that this was the case for Mumbai, and that we had come as close to as an actual blueprint on the same, perhaps. Might not have been an ideal air cargo village, as the space in and around Mumbai airport has always been a challenge. But we had all the basics chalked out in the plan: customs, ancillary authorities, wildlife, drug controller, banks, and whatever seemed appropriate at that point in time, so on and so forth. Don't ask me what happened. I can see Vipul is smiling, but it just perhaps died a natural death. I don't know. That said, and looking ahead, I think this is still very relevant in the Indian market, though. Of course, in step 2, we must consider the aerotropolis concept, which we just heard about from Ram. I understand from the organizers that the government is keen to build infrastructure in and around our logistics industry, and hence we must really make the most of this opportunity. So what exactly is that we as forwarders are looking for in a cargo village is that currently we are working in a rather scattered environment with duplication of processes, which are naturally time consuming and only add to the logistics costs. Our offices are somewhere, our warehouses are somewhere else, our transport operators, if outsourced, are remote. And so much so that even our local customs authorities are not all in the same place, and as regards inbound, outbound, ocean and air freight shipments. So everything is a bit scattered and each entity is doing its own thing perhaps. So a cargo village perhaps could be easily compared to something, I don't know, like perhaps a car manufacturing unit where everything is meticulously, moves meticulously over an assembly line and each process is rather well defined. All stakeholders are connected with one another, and this in a sense saves time, which is absolutely invaluable to air cargo. The forwarders would have landside as well as airside connectivity with customs at its doorstep, easy access to authorities like ADC, wildlife, packers, banks, and so on. Minimal handling of shipments, thereby avoiding damage, claims thereof, weighment, labeling, examination, perhaps even palletization of cargo. I think this is a worldwide concept and we are missing the same for some strange reason in India. And this could be also explored in, so it could all be happening under one roof. Cargo comes landside and we deliver it to the airlines or their GHA in one single uninterrupted chain. In addition to this, there could be value-added services which we could provide to our customers in terms of packing, insurance surveys, reduced transportation and handling, 100% security of their shipments, and so on. Today, we are plagued, unfortunately, with traffic congestion, accessibility, pilferage, damage, etc., all of which could get minimized if all this is under one single sterile environment. As we all know, in today's date, these processes are fragmented. Our staff are running from pillar to post, only adding to manpower costs, which of course ultimately add on to the overall logistics cost of a shipment. Today at 13%, India is perhaps nearly double as that of a developed nation in terms of logistics costs. Connectivity is vital. I think Ram just mentioned that. And in today's environment, hence perhaps the stress from the authorities also in development of infrastructure. If we want India to be a successful transshipment hub like Dubai is, then we need to understand that we need freight corridors to and from domestic to international terminals, seaports, airports, railways, and all modes of transports need to be connected seamlessly. The famous sea air model of Dubai would never have seen the light of the day without this uninterrupted connectivity. The amount of revenue which of course this would generate for the country is something immeasurable perhaps. FTZs and SEZs, for example, could well be accommodated within the cargo village itself. Today, goods from these free trade zones move in a bonded environment, which is time consuming as there are processes involved when they move in and out of a secure facility. I think a cargo village would be a welcome move for such importers and exporters. In terms of users, the facility is important. It's important to note that this would be a boon to SME forwarders of our countries who perhaps cannot afford their own state-of-the-art bonded facility. As mentioned, they could have their offices and their warehouses in the same locations with easy access landside and as well as airside. What one has also witnessed is the availability of a common user facility for those forwarders who do not want or cannot afford their own facility. This common user premises would serve as pretty much our very own cargo complex today, but within the cargo village, thereby offering economies of scale in terms of easy access to all the stakeholders. As an aside, and I think Ram mentioned e-commerce, it's growing at nearly 20% a year. I think we all know this. 80% of cross-border shipments, e-commerce shipments are transported by air. Now, do I even need to expand that as to where our trade is heading and how much value add such a facility could bring to our members? COVID, it turned air cargo on its head. Who would have thought of a word called freighters? But it's a reality. Cargo today forms 36% of airline revenue, which during non-COVID times was as low as 10 to 12%. So this is not going to change in a hurry. And while I know that such a facility cannot be constructed overnight, at least from a Mumbai perspective, and I'll ask the organizers to forgive me as I'm from Mumbai, we have a new airport coming. Ram mentioned that the Navi Mumbai airport, where such a possibility has got to be on the cards. As they say, der aaye durust aaye. It's never too late. Let's push for it. Many of us might not witness the fruits it bears, but family-owned businesses would certainly be doing their next gen a good deed if it came about. So thank you, Vipulji, and back to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Keshav. Picked up a few pointers from you on that. I think your initial summary of the fact that it was a complex air cargo complex, I mean, that touched a chord. A number of other things touched a chord as well. And we'll kind of develop into that a little bit later as we speak. And that brings me on to Sanjiv. We would love to hear from you the airport operator's perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vipul, once again, and thank you for helping me be part of this very eminent panel, and very privileged to be part of that, and also, all the delegates who are joining us this morning. I'd like to compliment ACFI as well, for this topic, which is picked up an ideal cargo village. And I thought I was just taking it that in the normal course of things. I was just, Ram was to speak and Keshav, and then after me. Now I realize, it's by design, because Ram is talking about, something very aspirational, very futuristic. Keshav brings us down to earth. This is where we are. And I'm supposed to address what do we do with both these, things. So I think I will, pick it up from there and see where we are, and I can fully relate with what Keshav was saying, that, sometimes when we took off in 2006, I remember we also had a cargo complex, which was so called cargo complex, and it was truly complex. But when we talk of a cargo village, I think it's part of a larger ecosystem that we're talking of. And what needs to be done is a more integrated ecosystem that needs to be created. And when we just to take a little bit walk back into history. In 2010, I remember, when we had completed our first, wave of expansion for the passenger terminals, T3 was just about to open, and we had aspirations of making, India's first hub airport. We looked at other airports around the world, which are, hubs in the true sense. And we very soon realized, that to have successful hubs, you need to have significant amount of cargo volumes which complement your passenger traffic. I mean, if you look at the likes of Hong Kong or Singapore or Frankfurt, or you name, the major hubs, they will have a significant amount of cargo. And that's where we also kind of looked at our cargo strategy. What should we be doing in terms of our cargo strategy? And what came out was, that obviously you need, there are three very integral part of the strategy. It's a kind of a three-pronged approach, which you need to have. You need to have good, strong infrastructure, which, which is the underpinning factor. You need to have a good network and good processes as well. So we started off by that. And I'm happy, Piyush mentioned, some very significant growth that we've had in the domestic side of the business. And, from going almost 4x from 2010 to, now. And we're happy, that in fact, 2010, we set up this common user domestic terminal. And now as I look back, I think it is, we can at least take some pride, with being part of that big growth, because earlier, those of you who were there will remember, domestic cargo used to be handled, we used to call it, there was steel gate, and people would be giving deliveries and taking, accepting cargo on the road. And, you'd be having one very smart airline gentleman sitting with his tie and all that, but sitting on the roadside, taking deliveries. But, things have changed now. And I think they have a much better facility to manage from, and that's where we've seen the growth coming, and obviously it needs to improve further. Then we went into actually developing a tier one. When we took over, we were handling about 0.3 million tons of cargo, went on to about 1.8 million tons capacity is what we have now. 2016, we picked up our, the tier two development. We have almost 0.3 million tons of 3 million square feet of, capacity that we have now, and going to another 500,000. And then we started focusing on our network, so 140 plus destinations, also, making sure that we have a strong RFS connectivity. When you're looking at cargo hubs, you're looking at, cargo infrastructure, you need to complement your air connectivity with the surface connectivity. So we worked very closely on that as well. And, another important area was actually looking at the digitization part of it, because, cargo is only as it flows as efficiently as the information. Sometimes, in fact, you can have information that, you can actually have the cargo flowing faster, but, it's waiting for permissions to come, or, somebody, I don't know, even today's world, the message in the message is still not come, so the cargo can't be cleared. So those kind of situations. So we said, no, we need to have efficiency there. And in fact, we got, IATA to certify us as India's first e-Aviable 360 compliant airport. And then another area was, working closely with the regulators. Sometimes, with the regulators, you can complain and say, this is not happening, that is not happening. But we said, let's have an approach. What do we want with the regulators? We came up with a 20-point program, like the government used to have the, 20-point program and 5-year plan. We came up with a 20-point program and worked very collaboratively, closely with the customs. In fact, this 24/7 was something after long years of efforts that we put in together. It came through many other initiatives like that came through. And in fact, we got certified as India's first, AEO airport. And I think, what I would like to say is that, our customs, our regulators are very, very, when we approach them in the right way, in fact, they are there to kind of work with us to make things improve. And though, we've done pre-COVID, did about 1 million tons first time an Indian airport has done that. But it's been possible because of the industry working together. It's possible because our regulators working together. It's been possible because, the infrastructure was in place. And I think, if we look at this backdrop, it is just the right kind of a setting for us to change gear and move to the next level. And for the moment, and we also, just one last point before I conclude, we also looked very consciously at developing the transshipment business. And that's where we built a transshipment excellence center, which is completely an airside facility, again, a first in the country. And we've seen business grow over there because we've now been able to hub for, our South Asian countries, Bangladesh, Nepal. We've seen all that transiting over Delhi for far-flung regions. So a lot of it, thought process has gone into it, and we've reached where we are. We are happy with the progress, but with collaboration, with the industry and support with the regulators, we obviously have aspirations to take it to the next level. I will just pause here for a moment, and Vipul, hand it back to you, and probably just take more questions later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjiv. That was quite succinctly put. I think you mentioned about being ready to go on to the next level. We would certainly want to explore a little bit on that, and also talk about some of the transshipment stuff that we spoke about. There are things you hear in the trade that are always they are looking for more. They're looking for more. They're looking for more choice. They are looking to ensure that the development within the industry in India is complemented by probably moving stuff from other places as well via India and make it a true import-export connectivity. So thank you so much for that, Sanjiv. That brings me to Yash for your opening comments. Yash, over to you. Give us a bit more about what's happening in the local area and with the ACFI's approach on the cargo village concept. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vipul. Firstly, it's a pleasure to see Ram. Always a big fan of his. I've always been saying that. So it's great to be on the same platform as him and talking to a lovely audience here. Nice to see you, Keshavji. I haven't seen you in a while, so good to see you here. And Sanjiv, always a pleasure, of course. And we work closely with each other. Vipul, of course, champ you are. And I'm so delighted that firstly, Ministry of Civil Aviation agreed to be a part of this webinar, giving relevance to our topic. Mr. Piyush Srivastava coming over and addressing all of us the audience is really heartening, because unless and until we have the government working with us, it will be difficult to carry on what we are trying to discuss through this topic, and a topic which is very, very important for the growth of air cargo industry in the country, for sure. Logistics. What is exactly logistics? I keep talking about that. Logistics is nothing but a chain of stakeholders who work together in sync with each other to move goods, or to store goods. And the more distant they are physically or digitally from each other, they will have inefficiency and lack of speed. And that's why I feel that Cargo Village at least brings that physical distance a little bit closer for all the stakeholders. So Cargo Village is extremely important, I feel, to add efficiency and speed to the air cargo community, to the air cargo chain. Cargo villages definitely have a huge capability or ability to save us space. We all do a lot of common things around as similar stakeholders. So if we are all able to utilize some common facilities, it can give us big power to save space in a very expensive world today. And also it kind of creates an opportunity to all the stakeholders to synergize, some of us to work together, and also to add value, to do value-added services possibly to our end customers, to the shippers or the consignees. And lastly, it also can facilitate intermodal movement of goods, which is very essential. I have always been saying that, air freight, air cargo, the whole infrastructure probably has always felt that we are far superior than the other modes of transportation. And I think air cargo has forever in its life not collaborated with other stakeholders, or not the other stakeholders, but the other modes of transportation. Whether it is for packaging, whether it is for train connectivity, whether it is for infrastructure, whatever has been created, air freight, air cargo facilities have kind of been set up in silo over the years. The business has been changing. We all know the business is changing way too fast for all of us. And if we don't change, there will be somebody who will overtake us and probably make us redundant. From the traditional way of moving larger consignments, the business has become smaller and smaller to at an absolute piece level, where the integrators as well as the e-com logistics companies today have kind of created their own cargo villages through their sorting centers or their distribution centers, and really upped the game and taken it on to the traditional air cargo facilitators like freight forwarders, custom brokers, etc., and are possibly going to beat us down in the game that we knew best. So it's important that the air cargo community also stands up and creates infrastructure, processes, and even technology for a better tomorrow. I heard this somewhere that you can't win the wars of tomorrow with weapons of yesterday. So you need to have the infrastructure, processes, as well as technology, which can help us to go forward and probably collaborate also with the integrators, the express companies, to be able to do things. Coming on to the ACFI front, which is what I'm representing today. So Air Cargo Forum India, of course, is a body of all stakeholders created about 10 years ago. And the idea of creating ACFI was to bring better collaboration and bringing speed to whatever change in infrastructure, processes, etc., that we are seeking between us and the government. We could add speed to that. So ACFI has been now closely working with the government of India and trying to talk of not just the cargo village concept, but a few other key elements which are related to what a cargo village possibly is. I'll start with adding that we have been regularly discussing about adding infrastructure with the government at the airports. So maybe the airside facilities, whether it is creating cargo bays for freighters to operate, better facilities for freighters to operate. We do have a lot of private airports now across India, like Delhi, Mumbai, etc., who have done considerable amount of improvement in the cargo infrastructure of the country. But we also need the other airports, the going beyond the 6 or 7 airports of India, we need those airports to be in line with whatever is required. So a lot of infrastructure discussions are being done with the government of India and what we can do to improve infrastructure at the air side as well as on the city side, creating. One of the key points that we are representing to the government is how we can do value add of customers' business at the airport. So creation of FTWZs at the major airports, and obviously there are airports which are constrained in terms of real estate, because Ram spoke about the old Mumbai airport has constraints, and some of the all other airports which were built a few years ago have constraints. So we can't have what the current policy says about 100-acre is the minimum landmass that you need to allocate for an FTWZ to be at the airport. So we are requesting the government to change that policy to make it about 5 acres, so that at least some kind of a value addition, and the tier 3 that everybody's been talking about, including Mr. Srivastava, we are able to actually bring the customer to the airport. So that will help us to do that. We've been talking with the traffic with the traffic restrictions, because that's definitely one of the hindrances in smoother flow of business to the airport. Our business kind of has become segmented in terms of the time zones that we are able to use because of these traffic restrictions around, and we need the exempt cargo to flow seamlessly from the point of production to the airport, or from the airport to the point of consumption. So that's another area that we are talking about. We've also been talking of very strongly putting a request across for a definite single window clearance for all the infrastructure related projects, even enhancing. If one of the CTOs or anybody wants to enhance a facility, they still need to go to multiple desks to get approvals, which takes a lot of time. So we want that fast track and the single window in real true sense for creation of the important infrastructure that needs to be there. We're also discussing as to how we can get the express industry to participate better with the airports, and creation of good solid express infrastructure at each of the airports in India, so that whether it's cross-border movement of goods, or it is within the country e-commerce that needs to move, we need to create solid infrastructure for the businesses of tomorrow, is what I said. We're also talking of easing and quicker implementation of some of the digital initiatives that the government has been taking and the industry has been taking. We need to have everybody in sync. NACS as a project, for example, has been spoken about many a times, and we're not seeing that everybody's getting connected, or even NACS has not really even taken off. We're talking of a community system, but let's be honest that I've always been saying that every stakeholder of the industry, or even every organization today, works on different platforms, and all we need to do is be able to integrate all of them. We need them to API integrate with each other. We don't really need, that's my personal view, we don't really need a community system, though ACFI feels that we do need a cargo community system. But I feel personally that we don't need a cargo community system. All we need is all the stakeholders to be able to integrate their technology with each other, and be able to communicate, transfer data, etc., for quicker processes. Sanjiv just spoke about Delhi Airport has a fantastic airside facility for transshipment. We are a firm believer at ACFI that transshipment could substantially add to our goal of the 10 million tons that the government of India has. We need efficient cargo hub systems at the airport. So infrastructure needs to be created which could facilitate transshipments, as well as the processes need to be realigned a little bit. Maybe some of the digitalization needs to come in with regard to the transshipment process, which is what we are also discussing. One of the key factors that we are talking to the government today, we spoke of the 4x growth, what Mr. Srivastava spoke about in the last decade or so. But is that enough? Honestly speaking, no. And we need to have faster growth in India. 4x is too less for a country of India's size and what India holds. I think we were at a 3.32 million tons in 18-19 in terms of the domestic and international output at the airports. And if all goes well, we will probably close at a similar number, or maybe about 3.2 million tons this year, which is 21-22. So obviously the COVID has had an impact, and we've had a little bit of a slide in terms of the numbers. So if we want to actually achieve the 10 million tons as a goal in the next decade, we need to augment capacities. That's the first thing India needs. So we need to bring in a lot of capacity to the Indian airports. The customers need capacity, so we need whatever it takes, whether it's change of policies, amendment of policies, or whether it's the anchor airlines, the Indian carriers, which need to take center stage and increase capacity. If we want to create cargo villages, or we want to create a cargo hub in India, the anchor airline is going to play an important role. So augmenting capacity, whether it comes from foreign carriers or it comes from Indian carriers, is very, very important for the business to grow. And we do have currently, if the Indian businesses really want to take it on, I mean, we're talking of huge industrialization and all the Atmanirbhar Bharat as a great initiative. For all those things to actually come true, you need logistics infrastructure to be in place, and infrastructure also includes capacity. So you need to have capacity which will make those goods move from one place to another. The regulatories, we are in constant touch with, whether it's BCAS, whether it's customs or the other regulatories, to explore improvement of processes across the stakeholders. And I'm sure, but I would like to really compliment that the government of India or the regulatories are far more receptive to whatever we're discussing with them. And we have seen some very quick implementations in the last 15 to 18 months of certain initiatives that were taking far longer in the past. So as ACFI, we are very excited of the next few years, and I'm pretty confident that whatever engagement that we are doing with them, and the response that we're seeing from the minister himself is very positive, and we'll have a very bright future. I'll hold it on for now. Vipul, give it back to you, and we'll come back.
Thank you so much, Yash. That was a lot to cover in the time that you were given. Thank you so much for walking us across so many different areas that ACFI is working on. I think a couple of the large points that I picked up was one was about the capacity creation right towards the end, as well as you spoke about the better facilities for freighters, and also the fact that there was some look back at our own industry and saying that we had not really collaborated with the others. It was always at the behest of someone else coming and wanting to collaborate with the air cargo industry, kind of becoming a part of that faster supply chain mode that we were left with. So thank you so much for putting all that through, and that kind of brings me, we've heard from all the speakers till now. I do also ask the audience if they want to send their questions. There's a Q&A area. You can all send your questions there, or you can put it up to any of the people if you want to address it to a specific panelist. I will be posing it across to them to take this forward. But I want to go through Ram, I'll come back to you. In terms of what we were starting to speak about, you spoke about a retropolis, and then you spoke about something called a facilitation center. Talk to us a little bit more about the facilitation center, because there was another statement you made, which was about taking it to them, which was very, it's not something that is done in today's day. We do not take it to them. They've got to come and collect. So just talk to us a little bit more about some of those aspects, Ram.
Thank you, Vipul. The fact remains that the e-com operators have completely changed the expectations of the consumer. In the past, middle mile was probably quite dominant, but today the middle mile is a part of the first and last miles. And when the first mile or even the last mile, just before that happens, or rather after the first mile happens and before this last mile happens, there's a lot that happens in a warehouse where all kinds of sortation, pick and pack, and all kinds of value adding that goes on. That is not today key. Today, I know somebody mentioned it's going to be good for customers to come to our place. I don't think the customers should ever come to your place. Your business people are going to come to your place because the customers want stuff in their warehouse, in their house, or wherever it is. E-com in the house, and regular supply chain traffic in their warehouse. So assembly lines or wherever it goes. So what you're creating now is becomes a part of an industrial park, whether it's e-commerce or even pharmaceuticals or whatever kind of supply chain operations you are involved in. Everything comes into that place, and then you are doing the pick and pack and all kinds of activities that needs to go on for the final delivery to the airport or final delivery to the customer. So these are the things you need to start thinking in those terms. So what you are going to have in an already congested area at the airport, when you say cargo village, I mean, people tend to go into the airport. It's not necessary that you are in the airport. You can be in a industrial park, and wherever space is at its premium, your airport facility has just got to be just a facility, a kind of holding, and the last mile interfacing activity with the cargo terminal. Everything else happens in a larger place where you have time, you have resources, and you're not bound by congestion. So this is where I was saying, before even you start talking about cargo villages and cargo cities, industrial park, road infrastructure into and out of the airport, into the terminal, to the outside is key. When you're talking about even cargo terminals, I mean, you talk about import, export, and transshipment. That attitude is wrong, because the moment you're going into these three different areas, you need a larger amount of space to process. It has all got to be random storage. So you need to get your customs, you need to get your security people all involved in trying to make that transition. So it's a kind of a re-engineering of the past into first come into the today, and then look at what needs to happen tomorrow so that you can start building the tomorrow today. So
thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Go on.
No, thank you, Ram. I think that's very nicely put. Re-engineering from the past to come to today, and then actually to build up to tomorrow, and that gives us a sense of where it must move to before we can start to move from where we are at the moment. So thank you so much for that. Got a very interesting, sorry, is there any other point you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just want to add on, usually the cargo areas which are afterthoughts in an airport, they tend to be very, very congested. So how do you do? I mean, your cargo actual physical handling there, landside, airside handling is very, very critical. And you know that you cannot stretch sideways. So the only thing that you can actually do is go upwards. So, and Hong Kong has done that. We did that in Dubai and, several other places. In Dubai, of course, in DXB airport, we were trying to, fit a pint into a quart bottle. So we did what we did. But then when we went into DWC, where space was not a constraint, you spread out. So what you're looking for is efficiency of handling. And that operations is very, very important, because your hub of that airport is where the rubber meets the tarmac.
Thanks for that, Ram. That's a great perspective. Where do you go? You go up, and not only there. I think we've got some other examples, and one of them is at Delhi as well. In a very small form, it is there. But I've got a very interesting question that's come up, and it's come from Bhalla. So Bhalla says, when would we in India move away from the rigid import and export physical separation to ensure optimal utilization of precious real estate, a significant way to bring down logistics costs? Now, I know that none of us are, our government agencies and customs to answer that. So maybe, Sanjiv, let me throw this, twister at you. What's your perspective?
No, Vipul, thank you for that. In my school days, I used to do wicket keeping for my team, so I was fairly good at that. But I think So I'm good at catching this one as well. I think Bhalla has raised a very valid question, but I will tell you there is good news. Because in the times of the pandemic, when we had the situation of heavy inflow of imports coming in because of the COVID relief material, the PPEs or the concentrators and things like that, we were running short of space to actually accommodate in the import warehouse, because typically there's a balance of export import is generally 50-50, but this was like, export was virtually nil. Import was just coming in. And we, in fact, approached customs saying that, will you allow us, to actually use the export warehouse for storage of import shipments? And we worked collaboratively with, the customs over here in Delhi. We came up with an SOP, and they actually allowed us. So during the times of the pandemic, we have, mixed the two, export and import, and stored it in a single location. And now the next target is, we are saying, if we can do it in an exception, make it a rule. So hopefully, I'm sure the days are not far with the advent of technology and extensive usage. There are ways to kind of track where the cargo exactly is sitting. Gone are the days, when you used to really look at a shipment and know, whether it's export, import, and all that. But with technology, it's possible. So I think we made the start. So good point, Bhalla, and I'm sure the day is not far when we can see this. Space being optimized by common usage of, export, import in a common area.
Thanks for that, Sanjiv. What I've seen is that there's some people in the audience are actually typing in the chat box. I would really request if you can put those questions on the Q&A panel. That would really help us to answer some of them. But I'll pick up one from the chat box again. It's from Ira Gupta, who's from the consulting industry. She says, any views on whether the last mile connectivity is a bottleneck for expansion? Our trucking industry is maturing slowly, but fragmentation exists. Can I put that across to Yash?
Yes, hi, Vipul. Could you just say the question again, please?
Any view on whether the last mile connectivity is a bottleneck for expansion? Our trucking industry is maturing slowly, but fragmentation exists.
Sure. The last mile connectivity is very key to the world today. We especially saw in the last 15, 18 months, especially in the COVID, that, like what Ram said, forget about customer coming to you. It's about you going to the customer or you delivering to the customer. So last mile is extremely relevant. And definitely there are loads of bottlenecks available, right? From what I pointed out about the traffic restrictions and some of the other regulations, which do create small little hindrances here and there for the last mile. But definitely there is a whole lot of improvement. There is a lot of efficiencies that have been brought in. The hub and spoke system, which is now very, very effectively, even some of the hyper local deliveries, which are being worked around by some of the e-commerce logistics companies, are great ways of taking over the challenges that the last mile operation brought. So I think there's a whole lot of innovation which has come in the last mile part of the business as well over the last 15, 18 months. And I only see that getting better as we go along. The fragmentation in our industry is inevitable. It's less in terms of the express industry, but generally in the air cargo or the general overall logistics side, we are a very, very fragmented industry, and we'll continue to remain so. That's largely because of the needs of the customer. But even on the trucking side, when she was talking, so definitely a lot of larger players have started to there were always these small players here. Am I audible? Am I audible?
We can hear you.
Am I audible? I think I lost my.
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So basically, in the last decade or so, we've seen large companies come in,
into the trucking industry as well. There has been a lot of flow of large companies, especially on the digital side, bringing technology to the trucking industry and trying to take over the unorganized sector's inefficiencies. And but it's a very large industry. It would take some time for us to say that two large players. We will remain highly fragmented, especially on the trucking side over the next couple of years.
So thank you so much for that, Yash. I just want to bring in Cyrus. Cyrus, comment from you.
There are so many masters speaking, but there's only one grand. It's like a game of chess. So many huge masters, and you can guess there's one grandmaster out here. Ram, of course, no guess of that. We have one grandmaster with us, and he's almost created history with the Emirates, because the Emirates airline was, when he came to my office I remember 20 years ago, now 21 years, he said that Emirates is going to be a #1 carrier for India. And I said, what is this guy talking? He surely proved me wrong. Yes, Emirates is one of the #1 carriers, not only in India, or probably around the world now. So kudos to you, Ram, for your vision.
Thank you.
The question would be, Ram, to you is that, you were part of this great expansion of Dubai. And you see, everybody knows that the cargo village is a great story. How do you implement this now? Because everybody knows, like I said, it's a great story. It's a need of the day, implementation. And this is also going to be, we take your advice through ACFI and also through other organizations. We have ACFI, we have Trade Forward Association, we have the MTO, AMTOI, and all the associations have to work together to get this freight city moving. We have the ideas, we have the plans, we have space allocations in many of the cities, but like implementation, we want to see implementation. How do you take these forward on implementation point of view? That's the question I would pose to you.
Cyrus, thank you for that question. The fact remains that the implementation is the easy part.
Oh.
The bringing all the parties together is the most challenging part. This thing cannot happen in isolation of every party involved in that process. I mean, in a case like this, in international traffic, you have the customs, you have the brokers, you have forwarders, you have everybody sort of coming together. Now, idea is great, but the buy-in from one person in the chain, if it's not, or he or she does not buy into it, it doesn't work. So first, the thing is to come onto the same table. And what we did in Dubai is we created an umbrella. And the umbrella was chaired by the Dubai Economic Development, which was a part of the economy, Dubai economy, this thing. So they realized that trade is a very key part of what we do. So we identified how we want to go forward. We had the airports, which were very congested. So the new airport was created. We had the seaport, and we sort of created a corridor between Jebel Ali Airport and Dubai Airport, and Dubai Airport to Dubai ports, and Dubai ports to Jebel Ali Airport. It was a triangular. It didn't happen overnight. It took us a few years because there were so many elements involved in there. We had to get them all aligned. And it was the leadership of Dubai who then said, right, this is what's got to happen. So it's a question of the leadership, not at the airport level, not at the port level, but at the city level in a town, or it goes up to the ministry. So once you get that buy-in there, then the implementation, that's the easy part.
Okay.
So implementation of those things are the easy part, very quickly. The most difficult part is the buy-in and get the top down to the entire industry itself to make it happen. Because no one person, one component of that supply chain can make it happen. It's got to be a collective effort.
Thanks for that, Ram. Cyrus, great question. Thanks for the response, Ram. I just want to ask.
Vipul, can I say one? Vipul, just not
please.
interrupting you. There are so many interesting remarks on the chat box. So I request someone from ACFI to make a note of these interesting comments on the chat box, because we can combine all these comments on the chat box and then take it further some other time. I've seen, so the chat is so interesting. So go ahead. Sorry, I just thought that's my.
We're doing that, Cyrus. We're doing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Cyrus. So let me ask Keshav. Keshav, you mentioned about the SME. A couple of things were mentioned about SMEs in the cargo village environment. So what in your opinion are the areas that the SME looks forward to from a cargo village?
I think I did mention a couple of them in my opening remarks, but I think in terms of the ancillary industries which need to be connected in a way in which, like I said, it has to move in the form of an assembly line. We cannot be running from pillar to post to each agency and trying to get our document cleared or our shipment cleared. And that has got to, because it's only time consuming and cost consuming. So when I say that these things should all be under one single roof, because it's the distance which is the disconnector, basically. I mean, your authorities are sitting somewhere, customs is somewhere else, my warehouse is somewhere else, my people are running from one to another. So while we may very nicely say that geography has now become history, it has, because we are talking wherever we are just now. But it's important to put it in perspective and make sure that this happens in terms of connectivity, in terms of having one place shop, one window service provider kind of a thing. So I think the cargo village in terms of would deliver that in terms of a deliverable, that everybody is in the same place. I don't need to go out of the village and look for an auto rickshaw, which I'll get after 10 minutes, my person, and there goes the 10 minutes of a shipment, something like this. Maybe I'm talking, on the ground here, but these are all things which at the end of the day add up. So if you're in the same location, same place, everybody is connected. And I think as an SME, perhaps we are looking at that like a multinational forwarder or larger forwarder. These are all relative terms, but everybody is more or less looking at simplification of processes, so to speak. So that would be my comment on what we are looking at.
Great, thanks. I've got Ram. Ram's raised the hand. Ram, please, you wanted to add something?
Yes, please. Key to that today, Keshav, in today's world, I mean, you don't have to be in the same place. I mean, that's why I mentioned earlier on in my opening remarks, digitization is key to success. And Yash, I'm sorry. I mean, I have to disagree with you that community systems are very, very important. I mean, you create a single portal where, I mean, you go through that. So it doesn't matter physically where you are based. And look at this Zoom, webinar. I'm in Luxembourg and half of the people are in different places, but we are all coming together. This is digitization. And it's key to success. And Keshav, the other thing that has got to happen is forwarders should take the label, calling themselves as a middle person or intermediary. You are an extension of the shipper, period. That's the way you need to look at it. That's why I said, instead of creating your warehouses, you need to create facilitation center for your shippers, because you are an extension of shipper. De facto, you are the shipper.
May I, Vipul, just a small comment?
Please. This is a discussion. So please do go right ahead and respond.
No. Absolutely great. And I mentioned that, maybe we are today geographically, we are absolutely, everybody's in the same place. So it's kind of history. But the processes which we have, Ram, here in our country are sometimes making life not so easy. And you have witnessed these processes. A lot of them have not changed. I've got half a dozen questions on the chat box which are saying, why should an import shipment not be transshipped, only be allowed from Mumbai and Delhi? And why can an import shipment not be transshipped from any other point? There's somebody else talking about connectivity now. So all I'm saying is that if you have the connectivity in terms of, why should we want to only crowd a Bombay airport, or why would we only want to crowd a Delhi airport? There is connectivity. Take it under bond. Get the airports connected. Get the domestic terminals connected. Let there be bonded, free, easy bonded movement. I don't want to clear an e-commerce shipment in Bombay, which is meant for Nagpur, perhaps. Let it go under bond under Nagpur. Let's decongest the airports by allowing these things to happen with connectivity, with bonded connectivity, so that the pressure is taken off the airport. So our processes, Ram, unfortunately, make me say what I say in a manner of speaking, that we all need to be in the same place, because unfortunately that is the reality even for most of us as we talk today. And that's why that was my only comment on what you rightly said, perhaps. Thank you.
Keshav, I mean, going back to what you said was what I meant, and I alluded to that in my opening remarks. What you need to do is you need to create a workflow process. And that is key. And again, what I said in response to Cyrus's question, it's a question of getting everybody onto the same page. And then you don't need to be in the same place, because digitization will take care of that. And today's process, I do agree. I mean, it's always been a thorn that certain airports allows transshipment, certain airports don't. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, no common policy throughout the country. And that is something, these are the things that you need to start working on before we actually start looking at ideal cargo village or cargo city or aerotropolis. In an aerotropolis environment, it's easier because it automatically lends itself to a proper workflow because everything is layered.
That's why I mentioned the assembly line. If you heard me, sorry.
Yeah, you are spot on. You are absolutely spot on. That is exactly how it should be working, and that's what workflow is. It's an assembly line. So, but you need to get that buy-in, right? It's got to be from the city leadership or the country leadership. I mean, you and I can talk till the cows come home, but nothing is going to happen unless there is a edict.
True.
Let me step in there, Ram and Keshav. I mean, that's a very, very interesting debate, and this is something I think very close to Keshav's heart, because Keshav has mentioned it on a couple of occasions about the different processes at each of the airports, and we've kind of had a discussion. So maybe it gets on to Yash's plate now about putting it on the ACFI agenda, Yash. And we are on a recorded webinar, so it's been it's been put on. So I'm quite sure the ACFI board will pick that up. I've got a couple of very interesting questions, as you rightly picked up. One of them is the absence of an anchor carrier in India affecting the development of India as a cargo hub, given India is one of the fastest growing nations in aviation? Slightly controversial, but maybe I would like Yash to answer that.
For the controversies to me?
Yes, yes, thank you.
No, I cannot agree more with you, Vipul, that we don't really honestly have a cargo anchor carrier in India, and which is definitely one of the key elements that we do need. And we know we have to thank some of our Middle East carrier partners who've kind of given us capacities to move goods. But we ultimately do need somebody from Indian flag to be able to cater to what we need on a pan-India level domestically as well as internationally. So we do need an anchor carrier. There is no doubt about it. So I really prompt Air India, Vistara, Indigo, SpiceJet, etc. To take the baton and create a decent amount of cargo capacity and create hubbing at some of the airports. We do have fantastic facilities here, and if there is enough that these carriers do, we can really change the game for tomorrow.
No, thanks so much for that, Yash. There's another interesting question, which I'll let you go on that. I will choose another gentleman for that to answer that. This actually talks about the high real estate cost of airports in India to support will that support the development of an airport cargo village in India? And I'm going to pose that to Sanjiv, but I also want Sanjiv to answer the evolution of the Indian cargo hubs. So I just want you to kind of put both of them together, as well as talk about the economic challenges of putting a cargo hub in place. So Sanjiv, a very loaded, quite an expansive question, but try and give us a short answer. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Vipul. So I mean, to the first question, I think if I was kind of trying to read it myself, the apprehension, there was that, that real estate costs are very high on airport, and will cargo get its due? That's I think in summary, in short words, trying to ask. And I mean, I would like to give a simple answer to that, saying cargo is very important for airports, and cargo complements the passenger business. So as I started off, in my initial introductory remarks, saying that, successful hub airports need a significant amount of cargo as well. If you look at, I'll give you a few examples to look at. If you look at Hong Kong, passenger-wise, 71 million passengers, and cargo is 4.8 million. Dubai, 86 million, 2.5 million of cargo. Frankfurt, about 70 million passenger, 2 million of cargo. Singapore, 68 million passenger, 2.6 million cargo. Delhi, we were in the, I'm talking pre-COVID numbers. So Delhi was about 70 million we did, cargo 1 million. So, you can understand, that there is a lot of headroom for growth. We see that, maybe a gap of 1 million as an opportunity which needs to be tapped. And if we want to tap that opportunity, we need to commit, space, for real estate, for development of the cargo facilities as well. And that's what I was talking about in terms of saying that, we are, in fact, we've done about 0.3 million square feet of warehousing, tier 2 already. When we started off, in fact, as I was saying, 0.3 million was in terms of metric tons, what we were handling. Today, we have a capacity of 1.8 million metric tons of tier 1. We can go about 2.3 in the same footprint, and we have actually blocked some real estate for about going to 3 million tons in the same footprint. Now, additionally, we will go to about 500,000 square feet of warehousing, plus we have land allocated for more expansion. Now, having said that, I think there are also the economic challenges which we need to appreciate, in developing on airport infrastructure. As we speak, we've this 0.3 million square feet of warehousing that we've developed is A grade. It compares with, any of the best in the world that you can get, in terms of, the height, the compliances and everything like that. But in and around Delhi airport, and I'll take Delhi example, we've got about 6 clusters of warehousing space in a radius of about 80 kilometers. 4 of those clusters are in about 40-kilometer radius. They offer almost a million square feet of built up space. There's another 2 clusters, which is in the 40 to 80 kilometer radius, which do another, maybe 300,000 square feet, but not a single one is A grade. Few are close to B or maybe a B minus kind of a category. They are, they have issues with regulations, they are, as you know, the Laldoras and the agri land and all that, electricity challenges. But, they are offering prices in the range of, say, 200 to 400, rupees a square meter a month kind of thing. If it's bonded, about 800 to 1100. Now, how do you compete with something, building something world-class, comparing with the best in the world? And, when you've got quality that you need to pay for in creation, you need to pay for the compliances that you create. And you also need to create the competitive advantages as well. Now, that's been the challenge. So I think unless there is a very standardized kind of a policy of what kind of warehousing you can use for, say, storing air freight or storing bond, I think those kind of things are important to create a level playing field. Otherwise, it always looks from the outside that, look, if you create real estate on airport, maybe it'll be expensive and things like that. But people who've been there can appreciate, the kind of competitive edge it gives them, the continuity of operations, the 24/7, the proximity gives them the ability for late cutoffs. The product is much better. The customer has more confidence because you're right there. So all that is a lot of stuff which comes in, packaged with the deal. You might end up paying a slight premium, but people who've been there realize, that it's worth it, and they're always, asking for more. I think, Vipul, that's where we are. Cargo is important, and we are, in fact, very committed to ensuring we commit to that kind of real estate for development of cargo infrastructure as well.
Sanjiv, good point. Actually, one of the comments in the question area, and I do realize that I'm also running out of time in terms of trying to pick up all the questions that the audience is asking, and there are many, many more. I can tell you this much: there is, there is a lot of interest coming in. But I've got to pick up this comment, and it comes from Vikram Kumar. He says, as a SME company, maybe over 3,000, and he's talking about the same point that you've just spoken about. As a SME company, maybe over 3,000 forwarders and brokers might have their warehouses spread over the city. To consolidate them in an area designated as a cargo village with a dedicated bonded facility with rentals that make sense for small companies, maybe under common facilities will lead to major cost savings in terms of transport and handling. I would say utopian thought, but certainly a thought to think about. Can we bring this together in an area which actually then leads us to what you would call a freight corridor, from a dedicated area to a dedicated area. And going back to what Ram said, will that be the off airport that you think the process through, and once the process is there and everyone's on the same workflow, then you've got something off airport which has a connection to the airport through dedicated sort of freight corridors, which will take care of the congestion and ensure that exit continues over the 24-hour period without the connectivity. I think I answered the question as well. So let me move on to another question on that. But thank you so much for that answer, Sanjiv. This is something I want to ask any of the panelists, and I want to just move away from the seriousness of the topic that we are discussing. So if we had to get a cargo village, right, and I gave you a choice, I would just ask you which one of the two facilities that I'm going to pose to any of the participants, which one of the two facilities would you want and why? So to Yash, in the cargo village, would you rather have an ice cream parlor or a chai ka thela? Why?
Ice cream parlor.
And why is that?
I love ice cream.
Anyways,
India is a hot country, and all we need is a little softer environment here and there, and pick up ice cream, and it makes people cool.
Thank you so much. Keshav, for you, if you had a gym or a games lounge, by the games lounge, I mean the video game lounge, where you sit and play those things, what would you do? Would you like a gym or a games lounge? I hope, Sanjiv, you're taking notes, yeah? Ice cream parlor or chai ka thela as well. Yeah, Keshav.
A gym, for sure, a gym, because I am a sports person and I'm talking from a personal perspective. And I think, an attentive environment, and I think physical abilities are important to keep yourself attentive. The day I've played my tennis game, I'm far more attentive in office than the day I haven't. So I think if it was something which we could offer, our staff in terms, I don't have the place in my office, but I would have definitely put up a gym in my office if I could afford it for my staff. I know they would function better. So a gym for sure.
Thanks so much for that, Keshav. So Ram, to you, a coffee shop or a multi-cuisine formal restaurant, what would you like? You're mute, Ram, sorry.
Okay, right. Sorry, what was the question?
A coffee shop or a multi-cuisine formal restaurant?
Well, I would probably go for a coffee shop because I don't want people to stick around for a 2-hour lunch or 2-hour dinner, I want a productive place. A quick coffee would be good.
Brilliant.
Get your meetings done in a coffee shop, in the informal, and move on.
Vipul,
Thank you so much for that.
Sanjiv instead of you. Can I ask him?
Arvind?
You want to ask Sanjiv instead of me? Okay. Go for it, yeah.
Sanjiv, a bar or a sleeping lounge?
You know, the bar president should answer the bar question. I think so. We will leave it to him. But yes, difficult one, Yash. And I think, you know, given the hard work that cargo guys do, though I'm a teetotaler, but I think I'd go for a bar. You know, let them have a break. You know.
Guys, I've got to cut this out. I don't think alcohol on premises is a topic we want to be touching at the moment. But so, Sanjiv, I had a more mundane sort of a question for you. A stationery shop or a grocery store?
Oh, boring.
I know.
Yeah, I think, and I'm just coming down to very, you know, brass tacks, reality and practicality. I would put a grocery shop. I've seen, you know, our guys, you know, working 24/7 going home. At least, you know, they can carry something home and, you know, and grab a bite. So I would actually go for a grocery store more than a stationery. We anyways talking of going paperless, so I wouldn't talk about stationery and all that stuff now.
Thank you so much for that. Gentlemen, thanks for going along with me on that. I'm just looking at the time that we've got. We have another sort of 5 to 7 minutes to finish. And I just want to ask you, I'll pose one more question and then I'll probably ask you for your sort of top 3 recommendations in a moment. My last question to you is about the technical innovation that we would love to see in a cargo village. What sort of technical innovations would we love to see in a cargo village? And we can go around the patch and a very brief answers would be great. Let's start with Ram.
Sorry, got it. Yeah. The technical innovation that I would, again, I'm like a broken record, digitization. That has got to be absolutely #1 priority because everything revolves around that. Any efficiency, you want to create that. And so my 3, in a scenario like India at the moment, my 3 choices would be digitization, digitization, digitization.
Thank you so much, Ram. You heard you loud and clear on that. Keshav?
I've mentioned that a little briefly in my opening remarks as well. In terms of connectivity, I think what is it that, and forgive me, but if I don't go into what we have, I would never reach into what we want, right? So we have a problem with connectivity today with IceGate. We have a problem in connectivity with our truck, whatever, you know, in terms of our warehouse, in terms of how can we connect electronically all these processes in terms of, like I said, perhaps an assembly line. So it's all about connectivity and how it can all happen at the press of a button, that I know where my shipment is, where it's lying, with whom it is, where it's stuck up, what's the process, where the problem is. Now, I know somebody will say, but you can do it from your own system anyway. But I don't think so, because if customs is down, I'm messed up. If MIAL is down, I'm sorry, am I using the names here, MIAL, or if the ground handling agent is down, I don't know what's happening. So basically, everybody has to be seamlessly connected on the same system. So yes, Yash, I pray for a community system.
Right. So Yash, over to you then.
I'll first want to finish off this point of, you know, connect community system. I'm still not for it. Okay. I don't want people to connect into Facebook to share pictures. Everybody should use their system and transact. System, simple. That's my thought. Okay. Now, I would also like to be a little imaginative. Then, you know, you talk about technology innovations at the airport. So maybe Sanjiv can take a clue and build something for 2050. So I would like to see very efficient sorting systems at the airports. You can have conveyor belt systems. So right at the entrance of a cargo village, you know, you have a common receiving center. So, you know, the trucks come and offload whatever comes, you know, so there is nothing that they go to separate gates. They just offload at a conveyor belt. That conveyor belt carries the goods to the respective 3PL centers or the warehouses of brokers, freight forwarders, etc. From there, the goods are again on the same conveyor belts moved on to the CTOs, and the regulators can take them off, take them on. The goods move into the pallet built up area and the goods can go. So there is no touching. You have efficient IoT, you have sensors, you have tags which work seamlessly. This is what I would say. I would like to see an airport of tomorrow where you don't need to carry stuff from one point to another, and you add speed and efficiency through the technology.
Thanks so much, Yash. That was that's quite perceptive, and of course that brings me to Sanjiv. Apart from Yash feeding you with some ideas on what tech innovations he needs to see, what's your take?
I think Vipul, I believe that any innovation that we do, ultimately it should meet the customer's need. Otherwise, innovation, if it's not addressing a customer need, I mean, what good does it do? So in terms of building a great cargo product, I think even if we look outside of a cargo sphere, what do we as individuals look at? We want quality, we want predictability. And in our cargo business, I think the innovation that I would be wanting to create is, we talk of a track and trace, which is which I think we thought we were doing a great job if we could offer a customer track and trace. So I think what we need to give our customers is a pipeline visibility of where his freight is. We should be bringing predictability and precision in terms of delivering. Today, you have a great peace of mind if you know that 8:59 your cargo is getting delivered at your doorstep. I think we need to integrate our system. We're talking of a connected world. We're talking of digitization. All of it should lead to actually, giving that kind of visibility to a customer where I'm picking from points of what Ram was saying, taking it to the customer's doorstep, but he should also know when exactly. And I think if we can achieve that, that's the innovation I'd like, and that's what will give air cargo the advantage that we're looking at. Great,
thanks for that, Sanjiv. I'm going to get Ram in.
Vipul, this is going back to Yash. Yash, that's what the community system does. I mean, you work on your own system. All you're doing is pushing it into a cloud somewhere, and the community system gives you the connectivity to everything else, but you are working on your own system. They're not asking you to providing you with a separate system. No, it's connected to your system, and your system is connected to everything else through the cargo community system. Thank you.
Ram, thanks for that. I'll quickly go around the patch. Guys, your last three, 1, 2, or 3 recommendations. I know, Ram, you said digitization. I've got all those 3, but we've got about 6 odd minutes to finish. So just your last 3 bullets, what you would like to mention. There are 17 questions, by the way, which I have not managed to get to, and we will try and get them answered from within us, and try and get back to the people who've given their name. Otherwise, we'll put it up in the white paper we'll produce after that. So thank you so much for your questions as well. Ram, up to you. Last bullets.
Number one thing that I would do, and I think ACFI has got a big role to play on that, and that is to get all the players together. I mean, I'm not talking about just the people who are involved in the supply chain operation. No, I'm talking about the regulatory authorities. I'm talking about the city planners. I'm talking about the ministers and stuff to create a common umbrella from which you can start re-engineering all your processes. Number 2, work with your city planners to have an excellent road infrastructure in and around the airports, so that it's seamless, and make sure that the cargo traffic does not mix with the passenger traffic, because an angry truck driver is madder than a anxious passenger. So things don't work out well. So those things create delays. The third, of course, once you have gotten these things done, start looking at improving your interface area at the airport, which is into the land side to air side. So these 3 things have to flow in a line, because unless you get the first one right, you won't get the last one right. So you need to have all these 3 put together.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Ram. I'll go to Keshav. Your last comments?
Yeah. Vipul, I think I already mentioned connectivity. I won't repeat it. Process simplification also I already mentioned, so I will not repeat it. One last comment to my forwarder colleagues, and I think we've got quite a few of them on the show tonight, on the show this evening. So, we will need to understand that if we want something, we'll have to perhaps learn how to pay for it also and agree to pay for it. Because I think when I mentioned that we had the last attempt at a cargo village 2 decades ago or more, there were questions as to itna paisa kaun bharega jagah ke liye, that kind of thing. Now that's not going to happen. If you want to use the sea link, we'll need to pay the toll, right? So we will need to put our money where our mouth is. I'm not saying it should not be a competitively priced facility. It should be, definitely. But in the same breath, I won't say, but so say it as cheap as it sounds, but if you throw peanuts, you'll get monkeys. So let's be practical about it. Everybody is here in the business and everybody wants to make money. So we will have, and in the long run, we will save money at the end of it if it all falls in place. That's my perception. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for that, Keshav. And that peanuts and the comment that you made, I think moves us straight off to, it's like music to Sanjiv's ears, who's thinking, I can do something with this. I can do something with this. So Sanjiv, over to you. Your last comments, please.
Yeah, thank you, Vipul. I think, I will just leave 2 thoughts, where we really need a mindset change. It has been said in certain ways, but just to kind of reiterate the same, that one mindset change that we need is, we need to move to a digitally connected community. And, I'm not getting into the technology of it, whether it's a community system or a platform or whatever it is, but we need to think being digitally connected. Today, we are so comfortable with the WhatsApp, 2 billion users, 200 million Twitter users, but I think we need to think that way. As cargo people, we need to think digitally. Cargo somehow has been good being socially connected, and, the events that they do and things like that, but it's important to make the business impact. We have to be digitally connected. That's number one. And second thing is, I think we need to move from a mindset of, bringing individual improvements in our business to thinking collective excellence. And what I mean is we need to think supply chain. You're only as good as, you're the weakest link in that chain. So I think we need to get out of this thing of, I'm an airline, I'm a forwarder, I'm an airport, I'm a handler. Unless we can collaborate and think collective excellence, and that's, we're not going to succeed. But I also compliment ACFI, because that's exactly the space which ACFI is filling, trying to get everybody together and move along together progressively. So I think that's the key that I would like to leave, with these 2 thoughts.
No, thank you so much, Sanjiv. I'm so glad that each one of you is helping me move the flow absolutely in the right direction. You mentioned ACFI. We move on to Yash for his last comments.
I think Ram, Keshav, and Sanjiv pretty much summarized what we need. But we need smart, data-driven, automated, collaborative cargo community, right? Not the system, cargo community. I really feel one of the element that I spoke earlier, we need to collaborate better with other means of transportation. It will really help the industry as a whole, and that's what I really hope that we get to see at ACFI. We will definitely do our bit to do things to improve air cargos, but we would also like to collaborate with other means of transportation and see how we can improve the entire supply chain in total and not just separately.
Thank you so much, Yash. Cyrus, a minute for you, please, if you want to do any overarching comments for us. Thank you.
You suddenly caught me unaware. But Vipul, I think you've done actually, my comment is that you've done a fantastic job as a moderator here. Wow, I never knew we had such in-house good talent. All the people who have spoke are masters, and we have one grandmaster, but maybe we need to promote everyone as a grandmaster. Everyone gives, it was such an interesting, such a nice seminar. And the takeaway from this is, Yash, you know what we are going to do in ACFI? We are going to make a small video of all the clips that everyone has said. leading it, Ram, where he said, we are going to make the Minister of Civil Aviation hear exactly what Ram had to say. You know, you need the top guy involved in it. And Mr. Jyoti Aditya Scindia, he's the top guy, the Civil Aviation Minister, and we'll drive home to this message to him. So we are going to, I would recommend, I mean, I cannot take the decision myself, but yes, we, as our office bearers, we will take this cue, make a small clipping of this program. So we're not going to let this program go in waste. We will, because everybody knows a cargo village, but today the points that have come out and everyone wants it will be made a nice concern. We'll make a small clip, about 5-minute clip on the whole story of a cargo village. And that's how I would take the takeaway from here. Thank you very much, everyone. You did a fantastic job. Arvind, you have really set the tone and pace. I mean, you organized it. Mr. Koul, you are also behind the scene on organizing this whole event. Kudos to you all, guys. Super. Well done.
Right. Just to finish up then, I was given a target of 16:55. It's 16:54 at the moment. And as a good airline, we come in on time. I just want to take a couple of names of the people who've asked some questions and we've not managed to answer that. Sanjiv Kapoor, Arun Kumar, Vikram Kumar, Afzal Bhai, I think, and a number of Vipul Jain is there. Thanks, Vipul. Sushant Nigam, Sushantji, thank you so much. And Ashish Pandey. And of course, Bhalla with his follow-up questions and anonymous attendees as well. So apart from that, a number of comments from a whole lot of people. My personal thanks to all the panelists for, being so supportive, taking on the questions that we had to give, and to the ACFI team for giving me the opportunity to moderate this session. I have enjoyed it. It is 16:56, and I hand over to Prediman call for the next part. Thank you so much, guys. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being here.
Vipul, it's also important to pull out on time, not coming in on time, as you know. Sorry about that.
Nicely said, Mr. Keshav. Absolutely right. Punctuality remains both the sides. So, Vipul, thank you so much. Very nicely moderated, very effectively moderated session. And after listening to the discussion, one clearly gets the sense we are talking about a very large-scale transformation of handling cargo in India. And I think one of the very important topics for all of us, and futuristic one as well. So I would like to first of all thank our chief guests for taking time today and sharing the stage with us and giving us the insight how government looks at the things. Very, very positive, encouraging. A special thanks to Mr. Piyush Srivastava once again. I would also like to thank all our esteemed panelists, Mr. Ram Menen, Mr. Sanjiv Edward, Mr. Keshav Tanna, and Mr. Yashpal Sharma. So this discussion, like Mr. Kadgara already said, so it came from the president itself. This will be covered in a white paper as well, where a lot of takeaways we'll take it forward for the actions, and ACFI board will take it with the right forums. Some of the words which were repeatedly coming in during the discussion. So workflow process or assembly line process concept, which is absolutely an ideal situation if we reach there. Re-engineering of the processes, infrastructure building, connectivity from the ports, SEZs to the airports, domestic, international, facilitation centers, dealing with pallets directly at the bonded warehouses, whether import side or export side, which again creates a huge efficiency over what we do today. The benefits to SME forwarders once this cargo city comes in. Now I feel cargo village is moderated word. We go to cargo city directly now. And freight corridors. And last but not least, the digitization, which we could get a sense forms the total backbone of this whole integrated cargo city and the processes around it. So finally, a big thanks to all the colleagues and industry mates who were connected today to the webinar. It's the backbone of success of any such discussion because it goes to the whole industry at a time from one platform. So I would like to request all the attendees, all the audience that kindly share your feedback with us. After this session is closed, you will get the feedback form prompted on the same browser. So your feedback is important. Your feedback helps us to bring in more such topics and bring in more effectively, more efficiently, and we improve on the same. We will, as ACFI Delhi chapter, will continue to work on such topics which we get the feedbacks from the industry, and we also feel they are required and they are something which transform the way we do today a business in India, or we handle our cargo, especially the air freight side. So we will keep you posted on those matters time to time. Once again, thank you everybody and wishing you a great evening ahead. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arvind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All. Thank you, Vipul. Thank you, everybody. Ram, I'll continue my discussion with you separately on the community system.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vipul. Thank you, Arvind, as well.
everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Yeah, we will.
Excellent.